Recently, I asked my community under a community post for underrated games on Roblox, and I got a couple of neat answers, but I wasn't there just to play them. I was here to figure out why they were underrated in the first place. And so I went through a couple of games such as Project Stardust, Deployment, and Wartide, alongside my personal choice, Anomalous Activities, to figure out what these games were about, why these games were underrated, and over time, why these games had bad game design, alongside how they could fix their bad game design issues.
Starting with Project Stardust. Project Stardust was a pretty fun game, and it's one of those games where you can see every single bit and every single ounce of effort and detail that the game developers put into the game. Listen, this game is rad, man. The first time I jumped into an actual game, I was met with beautiful rushing lights and millions of stars as my ship came into existence. And then I drove my beautiful starship over the starry skies and into the territory of the enemy, which was when I saw him. My first opponent. I knew this was going to be a tough fight, and I knew that I would have to kill the opponent before they could kill me, so I manned my cannons, shot my lasers, and fought with my life on the line to defeat the opponent that had just appeared before me. Our starships met, but his lasers struck, and the shield had already depleted, but I was confident in my strategies and the fact that I could kill him eventually. Then upon shooting an unknown amount of lasers of missiles, I had finally won against this evil beast of a ship, securing my first victory. This is what an underrated game is. This is what an underrated game should truly look like. If only 60% of the gameplay didn't look like this! Oh, yeah, and the scenario I just mentioned earlier, that only happens roughly 5% of the time. The rest of the 35% of the time is just getting sniped by other enemies. Listen, this game is great, but because most of the time you die before getting remotely close to the enemy ship, your first time playing mostly looks like this. Waiting 2 minutes to load into the lobby, waiting another 2 minutes to load into the game, maybe reading the manual, and then waiting another 2 minutes to move towards the enemy ships, getting sniped by the enemy ship that has lasers that can somehow reach your ship when your lasers can't reach theirs, dying and then having to respawn only to wait another 2 minutes to get to the enemy ships, experiencing either peak gameplay or a okay gameplay again. I do think this game could be really enjoyable for any sci-fi fans out there, since there's ships from literal franchises such as Halo, Mass Effect 3, Star Wars, and a couple of other sci-fi pieces of media, but otherwise this game design can really hurt the game. With the average Roblox player's ever shortening attention span, it can decrease the amount of players who are actually hooked into the game, and regardless, it still wastes the player's time a lot of the time. Additionally, the manual is a pretty bad way to introduce the players as well, since it's kind of like the teacher throwing a textbook at you and saying, "You should read this. Please read this." Who actually reads the manuals, bro? No one wants to read that. And not allowing you to experience it firsthand while doing something is also somewhat of a misplay. It's fine, right? The manual is fine, but I think the manual should be readable even while playing the game, so that players can not just remember the instructions on the manual, but also do the instructions while in the game, while having experience in the game. So in general, I would say just decrease the map size and let those two suggestions be added into the game. But otherwise, I should head on to the next underrated game, also known as Airship Assault. It's a game where you can play as either not Germany or a bunch of green people in a battlefield-like game. You can fly from hangars, drive ace pilots around to wreak havoc upon your enemies, and coordinate warlike pushes that you and your teammates' teamwork can create to drive the enemy out of your territory and blow their ships up in a blitzkrieg-like strat. There are tons of game modes and plenty of things to do within this game, and when your teammates work together to create that final push and destroy the enemy warship, there's a lot of fun to be had inside of this game. But there's a lot of flaws with this one regarding new players' experience and a couple other parts. First off, the game has the strategy of teaching you the game by not teaching you the game and instead telling you to slam your head against a brick wall. Secondly, the beginner weapons have got to be one of the worst choices possible within the game, and also the game is entirely teammate dependent. The first one is self-explanatory. There's no tutorial in the game, although there is lore in the game. But the second one is just straight up a design flaw. The rifle is a very strong but very difficult to use weapon given to the player the moment they join. This is an awful idea because in the hands of a new player, they're going to miss every single shot they take and die to someone who's used this weapon for much longer. Generally, weapons should get harder to use, but stronger the more the player progresses, but this one's just backwards, with a very difficult weapon being given to the new player at the start of the game, so they can fail every single shot they take and repeatedly die due to more experienced and better players than them. And finally, there's the team-based game element, and the entire game revolves around playing with your team. And while a couple other games have similar aspects, the teams in those games are more so people you can't kill and can't kill you, rather than teammates you're actually trying to work together with, and in my opinion, that takes away from some of the fun. In this game, I had set upon a boat, and in order to do something with that boat, a captain teammate would have had to man the ship and steer it towards the point. But here's the thing, there was no captain of the ship, so we just dealt with awkwardly waiting for someone with 15 wins to steer the ship in the right direction. And then we did get a captain, and he started driving the ship towards the edge of the map instead of driving it towards the point, so we had to execute him. Imagine if a new player had to deal with that. They would think the game is boring, and chances are they would leave midway through. And because of that reason alone, I think a lot of game modes don't have much enjoyment to them. The only one I really enjoyed was the Airship Assault one, you know, the title card one, where I just drove around airplanes and crashed into enemy ships because my teammates weren't nearly as much of an issue as in some of the other game modes, so I could low-key just do whatever I really wanted to. And in my opinion, that was much more fun. Overall, this game is another war game with a wide variety of game modes and things to do alongside lore to study, but in my personal opinion, it isn't my personal cup of tea. Actually, it is my cup of tea. I screw with this game. I would just turn the rifle into an SMG that's easier to use and also make it so that within each and every single one of the game modes, there's a poster on one of the faces of the game modes so that new players could look at the poster and get the gist of what the game mode's about and what they have to do. Otherwise, this game is still very solid, and I think a lot of warrior game enjoyers could enjoy this game as well.
And now, on to my personal choice of an underrated game, Contact A888. It's fun, fast-paced, and has a high skill ceiling and a lot of build variety, making it super fun. If only I could actually play the game. Aside from not being able to play the game, however, aside from the side grade, which is older and outdated, this game has got to have the worst possible new player experience of all time. Now, I don't have any actual footage of myself playing the game, but imagine if you were a toddler that had an elder brother in grade 8. Then, on your first day of school, instead of placing you in grade 1, they placed you in grade 8 because your brother was already there, and you're immediately handed a grade 8 calculus and vectors test. You're a freaking toddler. Why would you know how to do calculus and vectors? And that's where the scientific calculators come in to save the day. That is, if you were told about the scientific calculators and knew what they even were and how you could possibly even use them. In fact, with all of those, you don't know. And so Contact A888 just happens to have a similar situation exactly like that, and whenever you fail that test, you're gonna get kicked out for 3 days. In other words, 3 minutes. Because when you die in Contact A888, you don't immediately respawn, you're booted out of the game for 3 minutes, and then you respawn, only to lose again. If you would still attend a school like that, I'm not sure why, maybe your parents are forcing you, but I sure as hell wouldn't, and a lot of people would do the exact same with Contact A888. It's just not fun for the new player.
Like, new players will wait 5 minutes to join a public server filled with level 500s during wave 1000, only to die in 2 seconds because the game didn't tell them that there's an entire free skill tree and a perk system that they should use to not die. If you don't use any of them, you'll die 4 times faster and deal a third of the damage. But do the new players know any of that? No! Listen, man, I love this game, but they gotta make it so that the players are first introduced to the skill tree before they tell the newer players to ready up so that the new players can at least experience some fun without having to wait 10 hours for the next reinforcements to get called so they can die in 12 seconds again. Or at least give them like starter perks that they can switch out later for, like, you know, their own personally customized perks as well. Like, honestly, man, it's very simple stuff. But otherwise, I still love this game. I'll be completely honest with you, and it's one of my favorites. Yeah. Oh, and as for Wartide, I'm sorry to the viewer who recommended me this game, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I can kind of guess why the player count is so low. Admittedly, I haven't gotten too much footage for it, and I haven't played the game in full, so I don't want to be full-on swinging insults without knowing the full extent of the game. But the problem is that from what I've played at least, the combat system is genuinely one of the worst combat systems I've ever played, and admittedly, if there was a coffee shop that had really nice scenery, really pretty scenery with a bunch of coffee flavors, but all of the coffee flavors tasted like trash, I still wouldn't go there because the coffee is the main point of the game, and if the coffee is bad, then I'm not going to a cafe for the coffee, right? But otherwise, that's all I really had to say for today. Maybe I'll do a stream later where I check out the game in full, because once again, I don't want to be swinging insults without actually full-on trying the game, and so that will be it for today. See ya!